Good morning, Warriors Corner, and welcome to our second presentation of the day, AI-enabled MDO, Accelerated Development and Deployment, with presenters Dr. Douglas Matty, Mr. Michael Cadieux, Brigadier General Geoffrey Norman.
All right, good morning, everyone. Dr. Doug Matty, I'm the director at the Army's Artificial Intelligence Center. Very pleased to have a chance to speak with you today with some of my esteemed teammates. Mike Cadieux from the GVSE, and then General Jeff Norman with our NGCV CFT. Before we get started, what I'd like to do just quickly is I could do a long introduction about how we achieve MDO. I'm sure you've heard comments from the Army senior leadership about speed, range, overmatch, a number of other factors that lead us to convergence. And so what I'd like to share with you is some of the things that we've gleaned from the recent Project Convergence exercises. Really is there's a lot of focus that I'm sure you've heard in other talks about data. And so while data and data fusion is absolutely essential, there's some other aspects of the design that we want to bring together in terms of system-to-system collaboration. And once we are able to have those systems exchange and actually inform each other about what their functions are, then we can achieve what I call cross-functional synergy. And when you have cross-functional synergy and bring together a number of our cross-functional efforts that we have, as well as our joint and coalition partners, then you can achieve convergence and achieve the speed, range, and those attributes that I discussed earlier. So rather than spend a whole lot more time talking about those pieces, I figured it'd just be easier to start off and show you some of that in action. And so we'll start off with a bang, if you will. So if you would go to the next one. Great. So we'll go to the next one, please. So again, what I want to highlight for you there, that's essentially a layout of the Army's AI strategy. And you saw the different lines of effort and how they've been able to converge. And so the results that we're showing you is in less than 2 years worth of work. And the reason that we're able to move so fast is, again, because we have such great teammates that have already been blazing the trail, making significant investments in S&T, driving it with soldier touch points, and they'll go into some of the details. And the key thing that we'll talk about is how do we pull all that together. So this is what we call the AI stack, or a framework that we ascribe to, right? And so most folks, when they think of AI, they think of an algorithm, right? But it's much more than that. Just as you have .mil-pf, right, that brings together the different attributes for a capability, the same aligns here, where when we think about AI, it's really about how do we make a capability, using the various technical aspects, again, partnered with our people, organization, training, and leadership, and those other aspects, as I mentioned, with .mil PF. So it's absolutely essential that we pull that together. Now, the other part to this is, once we've identified the ways in which we pull these capabilities, now the question is, what are the ends? So if we go to the next slide, I'll show you briefly. So these are the portfolios that we have identified and we're working. Now, some of those will look familiar to you, no surprise, because as we know, AI is going to be inherently joint. There's a lot of discussion with the establishment of the CDAO up at OSD level, as well as JADC2 is a topic of discussion. And so inherently from the very beginning, when we think about requirements, concepts, et cetera, all the way through the material development and technical solutions, we're thinking joint. And that, again, has been borne out in our experimentation in recent project convergence and edge experimentations and such. So with that in mind, I'd like to focus explicitly on the ground portfolio, or force application is typically what you find there. And with that, I'll introduce Mr. Mike Cadgy to talk to you about some of the great work that we've been doing with his team, where he's really driving that ground portfolio.
Good morning. Thank you, Doug. Excuse me, Dr. Maddie. It's great to see everybody this morning. Again, my name is Mike Cadju from the DevCom Ground Vehicle Systems Center. And it's an honor to be here along with our partners across Army Futures Command, notably AI2C, as well as General Norman from the Next Gen Combat Vehicle cross-functional team. Let's go to a couple charts forward. One more. So over the last roughly 18 months, we have been on an incredible journey, a campaign of learning and a campaign of technology maturation. We have had tremendous experimentation activities over the period of this time, some of which are highlighted here on some of these images. It really culminated in an event earlier this summer at Fort Hood, termed the Soldier Operational Experiment 2. In that case, we had prototype, or really pre-prototype, robotic combat vehicles, light, mediums, and heavies, and control vehicles. Exercising those systems with soldiers and understanding, how do you team? What does the man and unmanned teaming look like? What are the value? Where's their value? What is helpful from an autonomous perspective? What is the feedback that soldiers are looking for of what they want to continue to control themselves? And how does it all work together? From our perspective, I'm going to talk a little bit about the technology underneath that. And then General Norman will speak to some of the soldier feedback and what that looks like in the near and farther term in terms of some of the systems that we're working on within the modernization of the ground systems. And I should also note that that top left is really, that's the SOE2 experiment. We also highlight there's other touch points as well. So it's not just a 5-week or 2-month exercise. We are also doing very rapid iterative soldier touch points. In some instances, it's 2 weeks at Dugway. It's in Germany for 3 weeks, Australia for a couple weeks. Getting feedback from multiple units, multiple scenarios, international partners, understanding the dynamics. From a technology perspective, what we've been able to demonstrate over the last 18 months and through these experiments is the ability to take an ecosystem of capability, individual performers from Ground Vehicle Systems Center, industry partners, academia, AI2C, integrate it into an autonomy stack or an autonomous capability that can scale across multiple platforms, from small robotic platforms to tactical wheeled vehicles to robotic combat vehicles. And the ability to have common behaviors that we develop once and apply and integrate onto multiple systems. That, from a technology perspective, we've proven. We've then taken the feedback through each one of these exercises and said, where are the behaviors lacking? Where do we need to improve reliability? We put that into the pipeline, so the next interaction and experimentation, we've created those improvements. And it's, again, through the series of these interactions. As we look at the future and where we're going to continue this experimentation. And for the next 12 months, effectively the new fiscal year, there are 3 priority areas that we are going to focus on. The first is ensuring that we continue to have a robust autonomy architecture, an architecture that is open and modular, the ability to find and integrate best capabilities and best athletes, industry partners, capabilities coming from AI2C, especially in the areas of perception, computer vision, integrating those into that architecture. As we look at the architecture today, there's absolute areas where it's not open enough. We've received tremendous feedback from many of you in industry that says, here's where you need to open it up more. So our number one focus is on looking at that architecture, ensuring that it's open for the integration of third-party applications. The second is really ensuring that we have a safety case built within that architecture, working through the testing community to ensure that it's robust, it's effective, survivable, and most importantly, it's safe. And that we're able to work through the communities to get soldiers onto these platforms where effectively you don't have to have an F-250 chase vehicle behind it with an e-stop operator. What does that architecture need to look like so you can remotely and autonomously drive those platforms without needing that kind of surrogate platform behind you hitting that e-stop button? The other piece that I want to highlight is the focus on data. As we look and we talk about modules, absolutely we're going to integrate more AI or ML-enabled modules into the autonomy that's on these platforms. To do so, we need to have a rich and robust data set that's available to the community to train on and to leverage. And so our third priority is ensuring that we have that infrastructure. We also have the means by which to capture maneuver and movement data and making that available into the ecosystem for partners like AI2C to leverage. So as they develop modules and capability that is integrated in, that data is available to them and to ensure that it's reliable, it's curated appropriately, and that we have a continuous pipeline of that. Ultimately, as we look at the ground system, it's about ensuring that we have this ecosystem of partners coming together for a continuous development and integration of these capabilities. And we are constantly upgrading and updating it and applying these new behaviors to all of these systems that you see on this chart. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to General Norman, who will speak a little bit about the soldier feedback through the experiments and how that applies to robotic combat vehicle and OMFV.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jeff Norman with the Next Generation Combat Vehicle Cross-Functional Team. Truly an honor to speak with you this morning and relay to you some of the feedback that we learned from soldiers, principally through the Soldier Operational Experiment number 2 at Fort Hood, Texas. But as Mr. Cadieux mentioned earlier, that's one of only that's only one of a handful of experiments that are ongoing. So it's just a small slice of the feedback. But I think it's important that we share with you what we're learning from soldiers. Because as Army Futures Command and the Army senior leaders have pointed out, one of the key principles to all of the innovation that we're undertaking is to make soldiers at the center of our work, soldier-centered design, and so that soldier feedback is essential. So what are soldiers telling us they want from AI, particularly as it relates to robotic combat vehicles? Well, first and foremost, the capabilities they want, or the capabilities that we provide them, they want them to be robust and reliable. In that we probably have a range of alternatives where we could load up systems with a lot of different capabilities in order to give them a range of alternatives, and that may cause us to have less mature, less reliable systems overall. Or we could choose a few capabilities and make sure that they are very robust and reliable. That's what soldiers want. So specifically, there's been a discussion about AI-enabled maneuver versus AI-enabled movement, AI-enabled aided target recognition, AI target detection. Well, all of those things are advancing at a remarkable pace, as both Dr. Maddie and Mr. Cadieux mentioned. So we're moving quickly to get to AI-enabled maneuver and aided target recognition. But initially, as soldiers gain trust in robotic systems powered by AI, they want the robustness and the reliability for movement, to get from point A to point B without human intervention, and then when the vehicle arrives, when the robot arrives at point B, to scan from their left limit to their right limit without needing a lot of human intervention to scan left and right. That's a solvable problem right now today in our experts can make that a very robust and reliable solution for soldiers. That will enable us to build trust with units and soldiers in the field, and so that's the first thing that they want. We know that we'll grow to make that movement happen at operationally relevant speeds without the use of chase vehicles for emergency stop purposes, because we're building that safety case. But initially, we want robust and reliable movement from point A to point B, and then scanning from left and right limits to detect targets. If there's an obstacle in between point A and point B, soldiers would prefer that the robot alerts the robotic controllers to help navigate through if it's something that the robot can't handle on itself. And similarly, when the robot arrives at its destination and starts scanning, as targets are detected, soldiers are all right being in the loop to assist in identification, but certainly soldiers will be in the loop for making decisions about target engagement. So we're advancing that development and prioritizing our efforts according to soldier feedback. But fundamentally, what soldiers are seeking from the AI that's fueling these systems is to make sure that we're offloading tasks that can best be performed through AI solutions. So simple movement that would otherwise require teleoperation is a great application of AI solutions. Those are the types of things that soldiers want. Simply scanning from left to right and detecting hotspots. AI is fueling that in a great way to offload a burden from a soldier onto a computer platform. So that's what we're getting after is sort of first efforts. So you might be wondering, well, what does this mean not only for robotic combat vehicles, but for OMFV? I'll highlight that next. And so our near-term focus is based off of that soldier feedback that we're learning from the soldier operational experiments. So first and foremost, we want to get aided target recognition. Certainly the first part of that is aided target detection, but getting to aided target recognition with OMFV is absolutely essential. The work that's going on in the sensor space, the work that's going on in developing algorithms and developing that AI stack is absolutely essential to meeting our needs for OMFV. Waypoint navigation, as I mentioned, getting from point A to point B, using AI-enabled driving is absolutely essential. Now, certainly that is going to evolve over time. What we're seeking initially is well within the realm of the feasible. We've demonstrated those capabilities in the field in really rigorous environments, and so those are some of the initial capabilities that we're seeking with OMFV. And so we believe that there are solutions available now to meet our needs for OMFV, many of which are here at the conference on display today. We're really looking forward to seeing what industry brings with those bids that come in at the beginning of November. But as we look towards the future and what we want to see downstream, we want to be able to accept maturing technologies. And so we want to have the open architecture that both Dr. Maddie and Mr. Kaju mentioned, the ability to take best-of-breed solutions and integrate them into an open architecture and realize new capabilities without being locked into any particular proprietary solution. And then the key to that certainly is having the embedded growth that is pre-planned in OMFV and the computing power on board to accept new capabilities as those mature over time. So again, what we're doing for AI on the mounted side is really centered on soldier feedback, much of which we're generating from the soldier operational experiments. But as Mike mentioned, those experiments continue. There have been many in the past, and there's some going on right now. And in fact, the reason that you don't have soldiers from 17 Cav here providing this feedback is because they're out in the dirt right now getting ready to execute the next iteration of learning on robotic combat vehicles out at the National Training Center as part of Project Convergence. So the learning continues. We're excited to continue to get feedback from soldiers, and I think we're looking forward to any questions that you may have for us this morning as well. Thank you.
Sidney Friedberg, Breaking Defense. Good to see you again, General. For OMFV, to what extent can you just grab, the kernel that's been developed? I believe there's a common kernel that's being developed for RCV, and just port that over. To what extent do you need to write new software for OMFV, or does that depend on the vendor solution ultimately? What's kind of open and common software are you guys requiring?
Yes, Sydney, great question. And so first and foremost, OMFV is going to be based on the open systems architecture, the GCIA framework. And we believe that the autonomy solutions for that are going to be part of that open architecture. And one of the potential solutions to that is the robotic technology kernel, RTK, that Mr. Cadieux and his team have been working on for a number of years. So I'd like to pass it to Mr. Cadieux to talk through RTK and how that could be a potential solution.
As we look at the autonomy stack, really what you're referring to, the intent is to make that available so it can scale to any particular platform, a light version for small platforms, small robotic handhelds, up to tactical wheeled vehicles or robotic combat vehicles or other combat systems. So the intent is that we can have a common autonomy stack, if you will, that becomes available and can be applied to multiple systems across the ground portfolio.
Morning, Jeff. Brian Cook.
Morning, Brian.
IBM. So I love the use case of movement to maneuver. How long do you think it's going to be till we can scale that to a battalion level, where you have a battalion autonomously moving to a maneuver space?
Yeah, Brian, that's a great question and certainly fundamental to our effectiveness moving forward. And that's actually one of the key thrust areas. Well, I don't want to call it a thrust area necessarily, but one of the key areas that the AI Center is working on. And so I'm going to ask Dr. Matty to explain what they're doing with collaborative sensing, collaborative autonomy, because that's really in their wheelhouse, and it's impressive work that's going on.
Yeah, thanks, sir. So it's a great question, Brian. Thanks. As we've talked about before, so we're coming up now on our third iteration of Project Convergence, and so what we've seen is the really exponential acceleration of our ability to do that scaling. So starting off with, pairs of vehicles, pairs of UASs, now platoon level types of things, and the key is, as you highlighted, sir, is this notion of going from AI-enabled movement to AI-enabled maneuver, meaning it has operationally relevant insights and decisions. And so those are some of the key things that we've already demonstrated to a certain level. So I can't give you a hard timeline, but again, based on the rapid development that we have and the continued partnership amongst the ground portfolio, I think that we'll be able to see that when the time comes that General Norman's looking to put things in the field. Over.
Good morning, General. Jags from Latent AI. How much of the development is done in-house versus sourced from vendors?
Hey, Jags, I'm going to phone a friend and defer to the experts on that question. So the question was about how much is done in-house versus how much is done by others.
For Ground Vehicle Systems Center and the work that we're doing, much of the adaptive behaviors and that activity is done through partnerships with industry, both small and large partners. At any given time, we have over a dozen partners that are collaborating together. And that's in addition to other centers and labs across Army Futures Command. But in total, our intent would be to continuously have capabilities where we're providing opportunities and saying, here's the roadmap, here's the adaptive behaviors that we're looking to grow and mature, and these are the means by which we're looking to partner and engage and be able to share that roadmap so that way those that may have a best capability know where they can plug in and how to integrate and when.
Yeah, but I'm going to come back and address the question because I think there's an underlying assumption that says that it's business as usual, where there's a government RFP or some type of vehicle that's put in place, and then we hope that whoever it is that's doing the work provides it at the period of performance. What we've been able to start to achieve is a whole different model where we're co-developing. And so remember when I apologize if it went a little quick on the video, We said we were taking a dot mil PF approach, meaning it's not just a material solution that we're looking for. There's the people in the organization. That's why we stress so much on the soldier operational experiment, so that they have the feedback. But we also have soldiers and civilians that are co-developing with our industry and academic partners. So they're embedded the entire time, writing code, testing the behaviors at the field sites, at the soldier experiments, et cetera. So it's really a unique partnership that we've been able to do with this, I'll call it triple helix approach, right? So that, you know, we have basic research, we have applied research, we have concept development, and then ultimately we'll get to the point where the teams go ahead and start building those prototypes that we're talking about. So we look forward to that, and I think that's part of the secret, quote unquote, on why you see the acceleration. So things that were projected to take 36 months, we're demonstrating at twice the scale in 19 months. And that's because, again, the closeness and the partnerships that we're experiencing.
Good morning. This is a two-part question. I'll try and keep it short. So first for Mr. Kaju, this is Keenan Blatt from UT Austin Defense Research Advancement Office. What educational resources can be provided for getting engineers onboarded onto RTK at a basic research level?
Yeah, thank you. That's a really good question. So actually what we're looking to do is how do we ensure that we can plug into the academic community and universities across the country? And so one is we're doing that today, and we have several mechanisms where we are on contract or have agreements, research agreements, cooperative agreements with multiple universities across the country. And in many cases, we have provided that autonomy stack and some of that software to those teams in order to develop capability. Now, some of the challenge does become, how do we look and have cleared associates or cleared students working on some of these platforms? And then where is there an environment that we can have a more broad set of participants in the development or research of areas? So what we're looking to do in partnership with others across DevCom is have an environment where we can plug in more of those academic students or partners and play in a space that has a little bit more openness and less restriction in terms of some of the security that we have around the core capability that is going onto the platforms that I showed earlier.
Thank you. And then the other question quickly is more so for General Norman. You mentioned soldier touch points at early stages of research. How early do you tend to integrate soldier operational experimentation? Can you do so at a tactical readiness level of 3 or below, or does it really have to be more so on the applied side?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think the answer is as far left as possible. So absolutely, we want to understand soldier requirements early in the process to inform research in the first place. So we'll involve soldiers very early in the process to shape those our understanding of those capability gaps and what solutions soldiers are looking for, and then continue to iterate with soldier touch points along the way, whether they be in physical experiments, live experiments like we showed some examples of out in the dirt, whether it be Fort Hood or elsewhere, or in virtual experiments, in concept development workshops. Those types of events are all opportunities for us to get soldier feedback early and often. And I think Mr. Kaju and his team have some examples of how they've done that at various stages as it relates to the tech readiness levels.
Yes, sir. I was just going to jump in and share another area that we're actively focused on and investing in is continuing to mature the modeling and simulation capabilities for this. So going back to your question, which is where's the opportunity to explore some emerging research and capabilities that might not be ready to be put on a physical asset and with soldiers operating it in the dirt. That's a perfect area for our virtual experimentation, where we're running those algorithms, that capability within a synthetic environment with soldiers and going through scenarios. So a lot of the virtual experimentation, you have different use cases that we're exploring, where we'll have an opposition force, an OPFOR, actively engaging within that synthetic or virtual environment, seeing how those systems behave and perform, to then continuously iterate and inform the CFT on our requirements, and also give that feedback to the technology provider to say, here's where it's working well and here's where it's not. Now that's kind of an ideal state, so we have various levels of maturity to be able to do that, but we have absolutely the ecosystem and the M&S environment that enables it.
Is he going to ask?
You already asked a question.
Oh, okay. Matt De La Rosa from Maxar. When you talk about data, the foundation data for mobility across the terrain, are you guys going to, who's the authoritative of that data set? Is it going to be the Army Futures Command? Are you guys using NGA? What is that, and how do we be part of that refresh of, stuff happens out there on the terrain, weather affects it, so how do these vehicles not get stuck and do some of that cross-country mobility kind of stuff?
One of the active S&T activities that we have ongoing is absolutely what you just spoke of, which is how do we capture the data and what data? And what are the weather conditions? What is the soil? What are all of the sensors seeing? What are they perceiving, and how do we capture all of that? So we have an active S&T project that absolutely is looking at how do you capture that, and we are doing that today. We're about 2 years into that project, and right now we're maintaining in Ground Vehicle Systems Center that collection of data that then feeds centers like AI2C for them to do their development work in.
And I also want to emphasize, so as you know, there's geospatial data that you can plan off of, and then there's data that has the fidelity that you can use to do the autonomous maneuver / movement that we're describing. And so that's why I think it's a great point that you have to be very discerning as to what data do you need and how best to leverage it. So that's why I think you hear it's an ongoing effort that we realize. But I don't want folks to think about that we're not there. As we've already said, we're able to demonstrate and do a lot of the things, whether it's cross-country autonomous maneuver, we're doing that based on the fidelity of the data that we have applicable. But I think that just as we continue to refine the capability, I'll say on the operational aspect, there's also that enhanced capability that we do throughout the entire stack. And that's the key piece that we need help for folks to focus on.
On automated target recognition and detection, are you guys building on the Atlas demonstrator that was worked on the last couple of years under Dr. Jetty?
That's one of several solutions that we're investigating. In fact, that's going to be one of the technologies out at Project Convergence 22. So that's a really exciting technology that leverages really advanced sensors, an advanced algorithm, and we think it's got really strong potential. But excuse me, it's one of a number of options out there, and so we're excited about its potential. We're also excited about the potential of a couple other possibilities, and I think Dr. Matty has some insights into some other capabilities that achieve some of the same aims.
Yeah, so I mean, I think just to speak in terms of aided target recognition is only one component of the whole F2 T2 EA process, and so there's a number of factors, which signals / int that you're going to use when we want to work through that, and then again, there's a large difference between the detection, as we already highlighted, the tracking. There's a number of factors that have to be brought together, and so I think what you find, and where General Norman's really kind of spearheading us to go, is how do we bring in the best approach in an integrated fashion along that entire workflow, and that's really the key thing that we're working to pull together. I think that there's lots of opportunities across that entire space to pull those different best attributes and systems together. And it may not just be a linear approach. There may be decentralized sensing and fusion approaches that we're leveraging, and that's part of what we're experimenting with. And so we look forward to hearing when the time comes, what industry and researchers have provided to us. Thanks. Well, again, I just want to say thanks again for everybody coming out, and can I get a hand for my teammates here because they've done a great job. I think we're really excited about the progress that have been made. Again, a lot of this really kicked into gear back in 2018 with the stand-up of Army Futures Command, and we continue to see the benefits with the momentum that has been generated from that effort. You heard the Secretary and the Chief emphasize about the delivery of 24 and 23, and I think it's incredible to see that realization actually come into fruition, and it takes great leadership like these folks are providing to us to help drive and bring the full team together to get after these mission critical aspects. So thanks for your time today and appreciate coming by. Thanks.